Welcome to Pepper Shock Media's Marketing Expedition podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in marketing and advertising. Now here's your host, Rhea Allen.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition series. I'm Rhea Allen, President and CEO of Pepper Shock Media, also a Chief Marketing Officer for Hire. And today I'm sitting down with Sheli Gartman, or otherwise known as Sheli G. Sheli, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living.
So I'm the CEO of Women Ignite International, and we do conferences and networking events, masterminding, and then I'm also a speaker. And I love to go in and do keynotes or consulting with businesses and nonprofits about things like culture and branding and team building, those kind of things.
Excellent. And we had Sheli come with our team and go over strength finders and learn about the strengths of each of us. And you kind of shared some stories, and I learned that I have command and woo and all kinds of fun things. Let's talk a little bit about the strength finders and why the importance of knowing how your team can work together. What is it that you like to share with people when you work with them about their with their teams?
You know, strengths is my favorite tool. If you said you could only use one, that would be it. And it's by Gallup, and so they don't pay me to say that, but I really love the hardiness of it. So no matter what your business is, what type of personality, your team can get so much value from it. And usually people roll their eyes or like, no, not another personality test or whatever, but this one's so hardy with 40 years of research to it. So what I find is the number one challenge in the workplace or any team is communication. Right. That's the number one challenge. And big or small, nonprofit or for-profit. And so as we learn our differences, how we're wired, how we approach things, and the fact that it's not as much right or wrong, it's just that you're going to do it really different than me and see it different than me. And how can we then pull up those superpowers, those strengths, work together and honor each other's strengths, but also honor our own? And that's easier said than done. But with that education piece and that awareness piece, people can really play with that, have fun with it, and learn how to not just tolerate each other, but really integrate with each other and maximize results.
Right, because there's some people who are futuristic in thinking, some people that are, you know, there's, like you said, there's what, 40, 30 different?
Yeah, there's 34 strengths, and they give them to you in order of how you lean into them or use them.
Okay. And by utilizing and knowing what the other people's strengths are, then it just makes your team stronger altogether.
Correct.
And having healthy teams, we know, have healthy employees create healthy clients, creates a healthy brand.
Yes.
And so utilizing those tools help in building the teams. So tell me about some of the things that you've done across the world when you go and work with companies. Where have you been? Where was your adventure last?
Oh, well, where I'm going next is really fun. I get to go to South America and go to Ecuador and Brazil and Argentina, and I get to work with young adult teams there, which young adults are my favorite. Aww. But I love all people, but it's fun to work in multicultural settings. That's one of the fun things I've gotten to do, where you use a translator and you have all of these cultural things that play in. The body language is different, the way they approach things is different, the way they use humor is different, and so it's a fun challenge. It's like that next level from just an American team. When you have a multicultural team, you've got different things than just strengths and education experience at play. You have cultural dynamics that feed in. So it's really fun to then help teams, you know, again, figure out what are our strengths, what are our challenging spots, how do we work through those so that we can stay on task.
Now, do you usually have all of the team together in a room, or do you use like a web conferencing tool when you're working with teams?
My favorite is to have them all in the room, because I can see a lot more of the body language, and, you know, people say energy doesn't lie. And I'm definitely one of those intuitive coaches where if we're going in a direction that's not really working, I can kind of course correct and go somewhere else. But I have learned, that being said, that Zoom, Skype, Google, I've been surprised at how well that does work. I didn't think it would at first, but my favorite is to be live and in the room.
Yeah, we just subscribed to Zoom and paid for it because we want something reliable. And so far it's been treating us pretty well. Is that your favorite, or which one do you use?
That's the one I use the most when I'm doing the online stuff. And we are going more online, right? We can maximize our time so much more by utilizing the online tools. But I was resistant to it at first, I have to admit. I was like, it's not going to work as good. And then I saw it worked pretty well. So I've been surprised.
And you've been doing some Facebook Lives too. I see every once in a while.
Correct.
I get to hear. And Jenny Q is tell me a little bit about what's going on there with what you have together.
So we have a show called the Ignite Your Life Show, and we focus a lot on both professional development and personal growth because we feel like it's truly connected. We're a human everywhere we go, and so as we develop ourselves personally, we can bring that into our cause or our business. But we've teamed up. She's ranked #2 in the world for live streaming.
Oh, wow.
So she's pretty amazing, and we just have fun. It's fun to collaborate, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about working on teams, it just brings more energy and dynamics, and we love to interview people. We need to have you guys on the show and talk about trends and all of that because, as you know, it changes so quickly. Right. And what I find the #1 challenge for people is they feel overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of ways to get out there in the world now, and what's effective, what's not effective, what's working, are you tracking it, all of those things.
And it changes every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And so, you have some expertise in some of those areas where other people feel like, it's too much. So we just try to unpack it one bite at a time for people and just give them little actionable things they can do to keep expanding.
So let's talk a little bit about Women Ignite. What is it? What do you, you've got so many things going on. So explain a little, what is Women Ignite?
Well, it started as a conference, and if you would have told me it was going to go into more, I probably wouldn't have done it. So good news, I didn't know, like most things, right? It started as an annual conference for women with, again, the professional development and the personal growth. And we have a trade show with that, a very intergenerational context, which is really fun. And a very authentic conversation, kind of like we're having now. It's not scripted. It's just from your guts, what's happening and how can we grow and scale and reach all these audacious goals. But then it's dovetailed out into, ongoing networking groups like We Lift, our new networking organization, and masterminds, and a Millennials, a young professionals division where they're doing online Zoom book clubs and stuff. And so really fun. And now we're getting asked to go into other areas around the nation. And so we'll see how that unfolds. But it's been super fun. It's been a lot, you know. So I continue to need to grow and learn and collaborate so that I can keep up.
And you're an author too. You have a book.
Correct.
Tell me about the book. In the process going through writing it. What happened? How did you get that book out?
My first book. Okay. To be honest with you, it took me like 10 years to write my first book, and I'm not happy to admit
I'm glad
that.
I'm not the only one because it's taken me forever.
And it just feels all the things, right? And prior to everything feels like a #1 thing, and it was really important to me. And some people say, well, if it's important, you'll do it. Actually, it was important, but it kept falling down in the list. And so finally I co-authored with somebody because I knew I needed the accountability and that I would see it through, and I did. And we wrote The Ignited Entrepreneur. And so that was fun, but it was also, it's like once you give birth to the first one, the rest of them are not that hard.
Okay.
To finish that book, though, I will say one trick I used because I was so busy by the end of the night, I was exhausted, and I had nothing left to write. So I decided I would record it.
Oh,
because I speak.
Right.
I speak.
I assume this is the phone.
This is the phone.
You're talking to the phone.
This is the phone. This is my iPhone. Yes.
Yeah.
You saw the hand
yes,
signal.
I did.
The
Okay.
universal
I got
sign
this,
language
yes.
for iPhone. And there's all these great apps, and some of them even dictate while you speak, or you can have it dictated later, and you can always edit later. That's the biggest thing: is edit later, fix it later. Don't overprocess. Don't overfilter.
Really
just do it. Yeah. And if I speak it, it's actually a lot more true to my voice than if I write it where I'm pre-editing as I write.
Right, yeah.
And so that's the way I do my books now.
Is record it.
Yes.
It's
Yes. So it's a great trick.
Have somebody else edit it and put it together.
And then when you're driving around and you've got great brain juice still happening in the day, but you might have hours of driving, I can speak a chapter in 15 minutes and knock it out. Nice. So my last book, I locked myself in a room for a weekend and recorded the chapters, and then I wrote my book in a weekend.
Wow.
And that works better for me than like writing every day or something.
And
like
it was
that.
just the entire time from start to finish. That's what you focused on and were able to get it out.
That's what I did. Nice. I came out of my room to eat and just kind of walk around a little bit, and then I just hunkered back down. Because for me to kind of hyper focus works better on projects like that than to do it daily, because with kids and all the things, it's just hard for me to stay focused. So everybody's different. I find, you have to find what works for you with your strengths and your family and your habits, and it may not look the way it does for somebody else, and that's okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, maybe I'll take some of that advice and get my book done finally. I'm hoping by this time next year I'll have something. I'm trying to do a chapter a month, basically. Is what I've been trying to do. So so far we're on the path. I have the outline,
Good,
which is good, but and it'll be about marketing. So get to put that down on paper, and
Very
hopefully
good.
people will get to read it and like it and love it. But that's the other thing too, marketing the book, getting it out there. I mean,
Correct.
and you're a speaker, you're a presenter, you're an author. I mean, do you find that because you've been in those roles, it's easier to sell your books?
Yeah, and the best way to sell your books is live events.
Yeah.
Just because, as you know, it's like online's very noisy. And I have to admit, I'm not the greatest at selling my book online. I just feel like I've always got so many things I'm putting out online that I don't focus on my book. So I see other people launch full-blown marketing campaigns for their book. And I always think that would be lovely if I would do that. Or maybe my team can help me do that on my next book. But yeah, it's great to have that merchandise for your event. And sometimes just to be able to negotiate, maybe they can't pay you as big of a speaker fee, but they'll buy your book for their people because they invest in curriculum for their people as ongoing development. And so sometimes it just gives you that ability to adapt to what somebody can work with.
So Women Ignite is usually in October, correct?
Correct.
And is it always the second weekend or no?
Ish. So this year it's, the 26th, 27th. So it's always about the second half of October.
Sometime in October.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the website? Women Ignite?
International.com.
WomenIgniteInternational.com. Okay. Well, we'll get that out there so that people can check it out and come see it. What do they expect if they've never been to a Women Ignite conference? What do I expect?
So funny. I was talking with I had lunch with ICCU yesterday. We were talking, they were one of our sponsors, and they were saying it's so hard to articulate it unless you've been to the room. And so we just have a lot of speakers, usually around 16 speakers, mostly women, but a couple of men. We love men, and we want to invite them into this equality conversation and this growth collaborative conversation because it's all of us together.
Right.
And so you'll find just a variety of mostly women, but a couple men in different spaces, from technology to entrepreneurs to corporate America, and just looking at how do we bust through our blocks, our limiting beliefs, our whatever we're lacking to go to that next place. How do we do that and do that together with a big emphasis on fun and laughter and things that I think sometimes in work we get away too much from. In the grind. Like a lot of people this year, I notice it's trending with the grind. Oh, we're going to grind. And for me, I'm like, I work really hard, but I also want it to be fun and to feel like it's coming somewhat naturally too.
Right.
So that's kind of our focus.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and this year you have a theme.
We do.
What is your theme?
Our theme is It's Our Time. So I really feel like it's a great time. I know there's a lot of negative press out there if you focus on that, but I think the economy's great. People are kind of brushed off the recession pretty well right now, and we're looking at where we are and what's next. The millennials have come in. We've got a lot of fresh blood in a lot of our organizations, and that's creating some challenge, but also some great opportunity for crazy amounts of growth.
Right.
So I really believe individually and collectively, like we're in some of our best times that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I think people like you and I were in our prime. We've kind of been through highs and lows, but we've got some great experience and some great ideas about how to help people moving forward. And so I'm authentically just jazzed about it and want to focus on that. Like, it's our time to do the things.
Excellent.
And kill it.
From a culture perspective, you talked a little bit about the marketing or the millennial generation coming in, and I have millennials that work with us too, and it's interesting the thought process that they might have versus maybe a boomer or a different generation. What kind of advice do you give to the millennials, and then also maybe the senior staff that are working with millennials?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite topics. This is probably one of the biggest things I get brought in on, and so there's a lot, but how do I nutshell it? The millennials, I usually hear myself say things like, I know you want to collaborate and speak into things, which is so good, and learning how to choose, the right opportunities and the right people to go to, and not sometimes take in too much. Don't go into your CEO and tell them the top 40 things you think they're doing wrong or that you would do different, because you're actually not the CEO. Someday you probably will be, but in this moment, if you feel really passionate about something, work it through with a journal, work it through with friends. Don't just go in and be careful and intentional about it. And if you're going to a senior, somebody more of a boomer, look at how you're dressed, look at your languaging, because it's actually a cultural difference, kind of like North America, South America. Right. We dress different, we talk different. It's not as much right or wrong, but it's very different. So if I'm going to talk to you and you're, 65 or older, I may want to be careful with my languaging and the way I present myself so that you can receive what I'm saying. And vice versa. When the boomers are working with the millennials, I try to have them focus on what are the net results. So boomers will look at millennials and go, why are they always carrying their cell phone around? And why are they looking at text messages? And again, it's just very different because millennials were raised on Google instead of breast milk, right? Like it's a very different. But how are they performing? At the end of the day, are the projects getting done? Is the culture good? Are they happy? Are they making your clients happy? What's the net deliverable? And focusing more on that instead of kind of how it looks. And again, those cultural differences. And again, languaging, accepting the fact that they are going to approach it differently, but looking at the strengths that those generations bring. Because the generations also have different strengths that they bring to the table, which make a team so strong when we can collaborate.
So one of the things that always comes up with millennials is that, they don't stick around at a job, that job loyalty is dead. What kind of advice do you give a millennial? I mean, it seems like sometimes, we have them for about 2 years, and then, they want to move on or move up. And, so I'm curious, is it just the norm and we should accept that that's what's going to happen with our millennials, that they want to stick around for 2 years? Or do we do things to try to continue to attract and retain them?
I think both and. Yeah. I think when I was a young adult, I didn't stay at the places I started at forever either, because you get in and you learn who you are and what you like and don't like. And sometimes you learn enough to realize you might be better suited somewhere else, or the company might outgrow you. I think sometimes people don't hire well either. They don't look at strengths. They hire a cool human, but maybe that human isn't a great fit for the job description, or maybe the job evolves and it's not a fit. Millennials also love to cross-train. They really, really do. They don't love, generally, there can be exceptions to this, but they don't love to be super pigeonholed in. So being able to use all of their strengths as much as possible keeps them happier longer, versus I feel like there's any kind of a ceiling. They just kind of rage against that. And to be fair, I hear a lot of older people say, well, they're not loyal, they don't stick around. But to be fair, companies don't keep people around always like they used to. We see mass layoffs. We see people that will lay this person off and hire somebody else that's a lot less expensive. And so it's not like my dad or my grandfather's age where people stayed at a company for 30 or 40 years. Yeah. So there is a trust difference now. People don't trust as much. They do move on more. I think that's a little bit cultural. Yeah. But I think we can, have less attrition with good cultures, with creating some collaborative opportunities. Not always, but some. Yeah. Getting the feedback, listening to it, taking what we can. And just having that open communication and letting them cross-train, you'll keep them longer. And hiring right at the beginning. Right. Because everybody's on that honeymoon at the first. It's like, I like you, you like me, but is it a fit? Right. That will solve a lot of long-term problems. Good. Yeah. Good.
And it's not to say that we've lost all of them. Some of them have gone back to school or, those types of things.
Which is normal for their age, right?
And I find myself wanting to root them on, to make that happen so that they can continue to go and do more and more. So, well, I think unless there's anything else that you would like to cover about culture and branding, we can wrap this up. But
sounds good.
I think it's always nice to get to talk to other CEO and commanding women, right? That's part of yours, and Woo too. I think we have similar strengths. But anyway, so thank you so much for joining us and listening to this, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Find more online at peppershock.com.